Hello there and welcome back to Wörth. And today I want to talk about the Focke-Wulf 190 D-13, and this is currently in the 1.77 live server, but I will show you a battle which is a big contrast to the current performance of the plane from the 1.79 dev server. And the plane has received a huge amount of love from Gaijin, and I think this is a global buff for many planes when it comes to how the armament works, but specifically to the Focke-Wulf 190 D-13 and other Focke-Wulf D series, maybe even the Tau 152 series. This is the much needed love, and I wanted to explain in depth what is what and why it is still a lie, but a lie that this time I gladly settle for. So I think many people criticize me for criticizing Focke-Wulfs and quote-unquote shit talking and you know, not really being excited about those planes. But this is down to my experience, to what I have seen in the game throughout all the nation, throughout all the patches, throughout the game modes, and it's the same old story. Now, when it comes to the flight model, there is one aspect that I think I always have forgotten to explain in depth, and I tried, and I'm sorry for maybe not using the right words or not explaining it in detail, but it's the controllability. It's the precision of the, well, plane in the air, that it feels like you actually fly through air and not just, you know, shoveling a cursor around the screen. And I think it's the equality of flight models in their ratio of realism. So when a Yak or a Spitfire or a Bearcat or any of the Japanese planes have a very smooth, precise handling with their own flavor, like different types of climb rate and acceleration, engine power, different performances at various different altitudes with their various different armaments, I think, you know, this is then trying to simulate the reality with a flight model. I guess this is how it works, and you have to fill a very big data sheet, I guess, with the right numbers. But there is one more aspect, and I think this is something that I always had my difficulties explaining. So it is just to get the guns on target. Even in a head-on, when the enemy makes a slight turn to the left and to the right, and you know exactly where the enemy plane is going through, you want to point the cursor there, and you want the plane to follow there. Now, if the plane is, if you want to do it to the left and to the right, you have to first roll the plane before you can use the elevator. But with the Focke-Wulfs and the Bf-109s in particular, that was always a struggle. Not because the plane was not capable of this turning, but more that it was wildly wobbling around on the screen, random elevator jumps, random rudder lock-ups, and so when you were in the defensive flying or in any sort of energy fight and you wanted to help a team member, so it was in those close quarters, or you tried to use the high-speed handling that was so praised by other people that I talked to in the past, you were really uncontrollable, and that was throughout the complete speed spectrum. So at low speed it was a complete brick. Okay, it's a high speed handling predator, but at high speed it was very unprecise. It made those weird C turns with it's god awful, and then random rudder lockups, so you were just flying in a straight line despite moving the mouse for several seconds to the right and to the left. And then when you hammered in with the Q and E or A and D keys, the plane was overturning, overcorrecting itself, and when you released the key, it was jumping wildly around. And you know, in combination with the rather slow muzzle velocity of the 20 millimeters, it was just god awful. Now on the dev server, a lot of those problems seem to have been addressed, and this is where the lying of Gaijin comes in. Now I think they didn't really made a statement about it, so I will not say that is Gaijin really lying, but I think some of the people have forgotten the past, and this is where now my long-term playing comes in. I've seen a lot throughout all the nations, throughout the patches. Believe me. If you don't believe me, well, why you're watching this video? Honestly, I'm honest with you here. This is the video where I want to, you know, explain it in depth, in detail. So there was an enduring confrontation on Sicily one day, and it was where the Focke-Wulf A series were able to play against the, well, allies. So especially Spitfires were played that day, and I tried out my Spitfires first, and I was like, oh my, I'm really bad today. Oh my, the Germans are aggressive today. And then I switched over to the Germans, and with the first flight, I immediately knew why. So, to clarify here, please listen carefully. Please listen carefully so that there is no misunderstanding. If somebody deliberately tries to misunderstand me, there is nothing that I can do about it. But this is now important. Listen carefully. So, the Focke-Wulf A5 and A4 that I flew then were not having given a different flight model. They still had the same climb rate, they still had the same roll rate, they still had the same acceleration and same weaponry. Everything was the same except one thing, and that was the controllability. So the planes were just smoothly flying through the air. You could take the lead that you needed to take. The plane followed the mouse like so many other planes in the game. It felt natural, it felt amazing. For your nice play, you were rewarded. Add to this the fantastic German teamwork and also the situational awareness, also defensive flying work. It was a joy to play, but it was like somebody at Gaijin switched the wrong switch. And they realized their mistake on Saturday. So Friday was the day that I told you, and on Saturday they just switched the switch even further back. You know, not just normal Focke-Wulf behavior, but then also even worse. And on the next day you couldn't fly the planes. It was even worse than they were just already falling out of the sky on the airfield. You could barely make it into the air. The plane refused to lift off. Every maneuver automatically pointed you nearly down to the ground. The planes were absolutely misbehaving, and this was the day that I realized that Gaijin is lying to all of us. It's not really the flight model overall. The flight model still might have some issues, some problems. I think the plane should accelerate a bit more, and you know, even in a dive it should just accelerate a bit faster. Maybe the climb rate is a 10% too low, something like this, but overall I have to say it's the controllability. I don't know, maybe that is the thing that people love about the Focke-Wulf, that it is a challenge to fly, that you have those key inputs, and when you are really down to the wire with them, if you're really good with them, then you can maybe make some maneuvers that you couldn't do with other planes. But I never saw any benefit in this. For me, it was always a massive punishing drawback. So one thing that I want to point out before I show you now the gameplay from the dev server is my statistics. So if you go here, you can see my most played plane is the P-47. It's a damn seal clubber. KD ratio, KD-KB ratio is not really bad. A lot of ground units when the last one was running away. Same with the Focke-Wulf 190 D-13. And 170 battles, 71.2% win ratio, and KD ratio of nearly 3. How can this be bad? How can this be, you know, the point of criticism? Well, those statistics are lying to you, because as I pointed out with my Alpha and Omega video from the Bf 109 F4, stats are not everything. KD ratio is not everything. It is important to know how do you get them. And so the plane overall, I think this is now the most important sentence. The plane itself you know, is not terribly bad. It's a fighter that climbs, it has a good roll rate, it has good armament with a lot of ammunition, but to actually make it work against a competent enemy is so goddamn hard, because you just make then the little micro adjustments and the plane just doesn't do it. In a head-on, in a energy fight scenario, in a defensive flying scenario where you just have this split second, the plane just wobbles all over the screen and just overcorrects itself, and you just shoot somewhere but not even in the raw direction of the enemy. And I think many people never seem to have this problem. So if you don't have this problem, I'm kind of jealous, because this is a problem that I have followed through the patches. And don't forget what I told you about the enduring confrontation. So I think it is kind of a lie that that the Germans have to swallow with their flight models, or rather the controllability, the precision of flying those aircrafts. And in typical fashion, Gaijin has overcorrected a lot of the things on the dev server. So the Germans receive with this patch a lot of love, no doubt about this. Maybe it's even a bit too much, I don't know, but specifically about the Focke-Wulf, the precision on the dev server is amazing. The weapons are godlike, and well, then even the battle rating has dropped from 5.7 currently on the 1.77 live server to 5.3. And I'm not sure how the other aircraft work. I've received word that also the 30mm are now brutal, you know, smack hammers. One shell lets an enemy plane violently explode reliably. This is a global buff. Think about the Americans with their 20mm belts, the Russians with their 20 and 37 and 23mm belts, the Hispanos for the British, and all the well, guns for not just the British but also the Japanese, the Italians, and also the French. The 20mm gun system is distributed on the majority of planes out there in War Thunder. They have different names, they have different belts, they have different ammunition types, but 20mm shells that rely on high explosive damage and higher caliber shells were struggling for quite a long time. And not just that buff was given, but also one of the big competitors in RRB has been nerfed, and this is the P-47. It was apparently taken away its air spawn. How this will work out, we will have to see, but I'm talking here about the important details, and this is that the plane felt on the dev server outright amazing. I had fun, I had a new hope for the game, the enthusiasm was back, I could pull off hammerheads like there is no tomorrow, and not like feeling like I got strangled by the flight model and by just the instructor. The instructor was no problem at all, like somebody had turned off this. It's amazing. To give you a comparison, imagine you are drifting with your car in the winter, there is snow, and you have your ESP on. This is the instructor in War Thunder, but it is overcorrecting and over, you know, it's too safe on the Focke-Wulfs. Now somebody just has turned off this, and you have a all-wheel drive driving system, and you have the fun of your life with this plane. You don't have more horsepower, you don't have, you know, better tires or anything like this, but it just feels alive. It feels like it's fun, and that is a big thumb up despite it being a lie. So let's get in and let's watch the match, shall we? So there it is, we are on Norway, and this battle is on the 1.79 dev server, and the plane doesn't really feel that much different when you just point the mouse into the sky and just let the plane do its climbing work, which you always should do in a German fighter, and generally every fighter in RRB. I take my usual route to where the enemy bombers might appear, and I realize that I'm playing against inferior planes that are piloted by bots, but I just want to show you how I get those kills, how I can turn, how I can get the guns on targets, and what damage the guns do. So one thing that is not really reflected here with the ping and the packet loss is that the shell damage is delayed. So for instance, you hit the enemy plane, you see the sparks, or the explosions rather, and then just a split second later you hear the ping, a split second later the plane loses parts, a split second later the plane might explode. So it's a bit delayed. I don't know if this is intentional, if this is an overlaid correction algorithm by Gaijin to let you get the kills. I don't know what it is, but it's a bit delayed. At the end, I'm not complaining about when I get the kills, when I hit the enemy plane and it just explodes just a split second later. I don't think it was my ping, because it was consistent throughout the games that I played. And there you can see I'm looking around, I'm enjoying the beautiful map that is Norway. I'm looking to the usual spots, you know, the destroyers, where there are AAAs shooting, where there might be some black dots. And yeah, for the live server, I always just recommend one thing: don't dive on the very first black dot that you see lurking around on low altitude. So, so far it's quite unspectacular. So again, I want to remember you, on the 1.77 live server, the plane is very uncontrollable in the normal precision. If you want to correct the aim a little bit, the plane is drifting to the side if you want to just point it a little bit to the right or the left. The shells fly very awkwardly. It's feeling not natural, it's feeling artificial, it is feeling very, very bad. I don't like this, and I think that is the point of criticism. And again, remember that when there was the enduring confrontation on Sicily, it's a long time ago, probably 2 or 2+ years ago, the flight model was still the same on the A series, but the instructor was different. The instructor was behaving more freely, and I had a lot of fun seal climbing Spitfires then. And it was not that the plane was suddenly faster or the guns were different, but I could get the guns on target, I could do the little micro adjustments, and this is what I loved about the plane. So now there are so many planes at low altitude that I think I need to investigate, and I want to close the distance. One problem that is always there with German versus Allies, or Germany versus Allies, is that you climb too much. And then there's just this one Spitfire that's climbing to space, tryharding. The thing that I want to point out is that very often the enemy team is completely on the ground. If they would use their planes correctly in more than just 5 or 10% of the battles, the Allies would have a much higher win ratio. Sometimes they don't even try. So look at this group of bombers and see how I'm going to handle this. So they are taking evasive actions, so that means they are already flying better than the majority of normal Allied bombers. And look at this, the plane is not wobbling around, it's not really flying tighter, and look at how I can control the enemy. I still have a lot of issues getting the guns on target. There we go, first kill. The guns are really, really nice. The gun sounds also have changed. I'm not quite sure about this, because the first shot sounds completely different to the rest of them. So you actually can use single fire now, and you do even tremendous damage to Wellingtons. And this controllability is amazing. It's amazing. So this little turn into the Wellington was unspectacular, like it should be, and not just wobbling around and trying to get the plane under control while you're helplessly exposed to the enemy gunner, and you cannot turn and you cannot shoot back with your fighter plane. So I think this is a huge change that doesn't look like a huge change, and this is everything that I always was asking for. I always just asked for the plane just doing the normal maneuvers. I just flew it on the live server before I made this video, and it's just so god awful. On the dev server I was in love, I was enthusiastic about it, and I had a good feeling for this. So this dev server is bringing a lot of good changes. Look at this. I couldn't have done this shot with the quote-unquote old D-13. It looks so natural and it feels so great. It's not extremely awesome or outstanding, but it is practically what every other plane in the game can do as well. And this is not down to the plane being or having an absolute tight turn. We still have those hits that are not one-shots. That was strange, that hit, I'm not quite sure, but I still got the kill. Was it a bit of kill stealing? Well, it's the dev server, you know. And now I turn back to finish off the others. I have here a nice conversation in chat with somebody else, and I think it's just such a great handling. Now if you're bored here, remember, this is a change that I personally have waited for quite some time, for years, that the plane actually can do this micro adjustment here. Look at this engagement here with the P-51. I got a hit in, and now I just you know, climb, I turn, and look at this. The plane is not wobbling out of control, and I get the precise shots into him. This is so amazing that the plane actually flies normally, that you feel the power, that you feel that you are in control of the plane, and it is what actually makes War Thunder great. You don't feel like you have to fight the aircraft. You don't feel like you're just moving a cursor around on a 3D model. This feels like it's alive, and I absolutely love this. Again, look at this one-shot action. Do you have so much ammunition that actually works? The mine shells being really, really powerful. I love it. I absolutely love that. This is a big, big thumbs up to Gaijin, despite it being actually a slight lie, but I explained it in the beginning what I think about it. So many people are now, I guess, staring at the screen and thinking, has he lost his mind? Oh, I think it comes from playing so many other nations' aircraft, knowing how they fly, remembering arcade where we also had this restriction from the instructor. It's difficult to find the right words and to not forget about something that I actually have written down. So there is no rudder lock or no random rudder lock. There is no speed lock up at normal to slightly higher speeds. The plane just feels good. And this is probably the oldest premium in the game that I own. And look at the single shot action, and we do so much damage. Yes, I know it's bots, it's lower tier planes, and it feels stronger than it actually is, but it's how I actually can engage them, because those situations are very similar to when I engage normal fighters, because very often you surprise somebody coming out of the clouds, he's flying in a straight line, and you screw up the approach with just 400 or 500 kilometers an hour, and that is just painful. So again, single shot action, and look at the damage versus medium bombers. And bombers in this patch on 1.77 live server are very, very tanky. 50 caliber machine guns are so good at one-shotting enemy planes or doing tremendous amounts of damage with just one hit. And cannons are really, really bad. So I think this is just outstanding in terms of how the difference is. But it should have always been like this, and that the allies use so many bombers, so many attackers, refuse to do teamwork, refuse to climb in the majority of battles, making it rather easy for the Germans attacking in wolf packs, putting effort into climbing, positioning and teamwork, helping each other out. I think, you know, that is not really very well reflected in the KD ratio and in the win ratio. Well, it is reflected, but it gives you a false sense of security. And so many allied players that never have flown a German plane are then complaining about how overpowered those aircraft are, whereas they're actually bad. And so with this buff, this is actually now giving equal chances. Would I still use a Spitfire in a potential competitive duel. Now I'm not so sure anymore that the Spitfire is the go-to plane. It's still very strong, and against a not experienced Focke-Wulf pilot, I will strike him down, because you know the Focke-Wulf is not magically turning right now. But I cannot play that recklessly anymore as I used to before versus a Focke-Wulf, and this is all the change that I ever was asking for. So I hope you understand my point of criticism. You understand my frustration with the current 1.77 performance of those planes. Because this is always the thing that is so difficult to show. That suddenly, randomly, the plane does this C-turn with the cursor, with the aiming reticle. It's difficult to show because you are not in charge of the controls. You don't feel the same like I feel, and this is so difficult to show, where I think then it's very easy to make a comment like get good, learn to play, and all this nonsense. That is not true, because you don't face the same problems as with those Focke-Wulfs. And so with this problem being gone, with the instructor being just thrown out of the window, I think it's amazing, but again, it's a little bit of a lie. So it would be stupid to go head-on against a PBJ, potentially even with a 75mm gun. I don't want to die this death. Let's see how the plane behaves, and this is just such a smooth handling. It's not an extremely tight turning, but I never asked for this. If this is how a Focke-Wulf flies, I'm okay with it, unless you know, it's uncontrollable. And I think those shots are just so easy to get in. That I have the wrong lead is just me being shit. But when the shell hits, they actually do the damage. That is something that I love, and you just can spray the enemy, and you do so much damage according to your firepower. No, you're not stealing my 10th kill. I think this is actually an actual player. I'm not quite wrong. I'm not quite sure, and I get the 10th kill for that. So that was amazing. Now, looking at the footage, it looks natural, how the plane moves, but that's the point. Again, I repeat it for probably the 10th time. I'm excited about this change. I hope it goes like this to the live server, it translates like this to the live server, and that was everything that I ever asked about. And so I hopefully now I'm also in line with a lot of the people that criticize me. There are so many points that are interacting with each other, look in the past, and I think this is a change that deserves a thumbs up despite it being a lie. And with having said that, that's it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give the video a like if it did, and let me know in the comment section what you think about this, and subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.